Let's give a warm Santa Barbara welcome to writer, director, actor, Jesse Eisenberg.
Thank you. Hi. Wow. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Roger, for having me, and thank you so much, everybody, for having me in your beautiful town. Really appreciate it.
We're so glad you were here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Actually, right off the bat, I want to ask you about, the film looks so beautiful. It's so cinematic, and working with one of my favorite directors of cinematography, Michael Dymek from Poland. Tell us about working with him and achieving that very cinematic look to the film where it looks beautiful, but then it starts getting somber when we get to, the concentration camp.
No, thanks so much for saying that. Yeah, the cinematographer he's like a 31-year-old Polish wonderkind. Like, the best film school in Europe is in Poland. And so people from even the richer countries in Europe will come to Poland, learn Polish for 9 months to go to this film school. So Poland is producing some of the greatest artisans in the world in film. And so we had no shortage of amazing candidates when we were thinking of making a small American movie in Poland. We had no shortage of amazing candidates for every single department head. And so the cinematographer you mentioned, Michał, he did EO 2 years ago about the donkey, and he did another amazing movie, Sweat. He has a movie I'm sure you've seen that I didn't see it called The Girl with the Needle this year. He's incredibly talented, incredibly confident, which is great for me because I was acting in it at the same time, so I needed somebody who was so kind of unambivalent about their own taste that I can just, after a take, after we did a take, I could say, was that good? Did that look okay? And this is a guy whose language is not English, but he was so confident and savvy and smart that he would be the one to tell me, yeah, we can move on.
But your film, at the heart of it, is a road movie.
Yeah.
And I greatly admire that you obviously were influenced on other road movies. I was thinking about Alfonso Cuarón's Y Tu Mamá También.
Yeah.
And can you walk us through the influences and how you achieved the beautiful look of the film
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, there's only one shot from Y Tu Mamá También that I just thought would be in the whole movie, and it was only in one quick shot at the end, but I thought we're gonna make a movie that looks exactly like that. But there's this great thing in that movie where the kids are driving in the back seat, and I think the camera pans to a police stop or something that they pass.
Correct, yeah.
And I just loved the shot so much because I saw it, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever, but I just remembered it because it was so interesting that the camera suddenly takes this objective turn and shows you something that the characters didn't see. And we only did it in this to show the Chopin airport. At the end, we're driving and we see the airport and Chopin Airport, and it was just we made the sign. The airport is called something Chopin Airport. It's called Chopin Airport, but we made the sign because I just wanted to wink to the soundtrack, which is all Chopin. So, but that's the only shot where we kind of pull past what the characters see, and the sign didn't exist, or it says it in a way that English readers wouldn't understand. But basically, and then for the travelogue stuff, it was basically just I just wanted the movie to have a bit more of a traditional look than, I guess, modern standard American indie. So I gave the cinematographer the movie Crimes and Misdemeanors, which was basically, it's traditionally shot. I don't know, it's Sven Nykvist, or maybe not him, but
Sven Nykvist. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically just, it's a character-centric road trip movie, so that means you want to have beautiful vistas. That means on a small budget like ours, we can kind of punch above our weight by, by being in the center of bustling cities and showing the landscape, by being in, it's free to do the shot. Remember, there's that scene where we're taking that red taxi and we drive through the field at the end. It's free to do that shot, but it would be the same shot in a $100 million movie because it's this gorgeous sweeping vista and a car driving, but it's a free thing to do. So it was basically how can we take what we have resource-wise and make it look as kind of grand as possible, which also meant having a second unit. Again, we were on a tiny budget, but having a second unit, cameraman and camera team, so they can kind of go and get all of the beautiful shots that would just be, for us, a waste of half a day when you have actors that you need to, and scenes you need to film.
I'm glad you brought up Chopin, because your choice becomes a commentary on the action. Can you tell us about how you were, other than the fact that he's a Polish composer,
Yeah.
but how did you arrive at the choice that is brilliant, because the music is commenting on the action?
Oh, that's so kind of you to say, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. Basically, yeah, when I was writing the script, I was listening to this music, and so I decided to just put the music into the script, like the tracks over the scenes, primarily just so that the reader can understand what the tone of the movie is, because the problem with just reading the script and seeing that it's like these guys are sneaking onto a roof to smoke weed was like I wanted to indicate to the reader that actually there's this kind of like sophisticated invisible hand that is using these characters' juvenilia to make a comment on modern pain and versus like big trauma. And so I just put those songs in, and then it turned out it was actually really great because I could play the songs for the cinematographer and the actors and say, this is the pace of this scene because this is a song that's going to be playing. And then it has this like added benefit of when like the financiers are like, hey, can we put a pop song in? You say, nope, because it's in the script that you liked, and Chopin is already in the script, and so we don't have to change any of the music to make it more accessible to your kids.
But when we get to the concentration camp, I'd love to hear your take on the direction, which actually I think that it showcases what a savvy man you are directorially. We can let go of the score. You don't emphasize emotion. You just play it out very quietly and very somberly. Can you tell us about shooting that sequence?
Yeah, I mean, I was writing a movie that was taking place on a Holocaust tour, so I knew, we're going to get there at some point as I'm writing it. And then suddenly when I got to the scene and I write, on final draft in Curry or exterior Maidanic, suddenly my stomach curdled, like this feels so exploitative and weird, to basically use like the pain of one of the greatest horrors of, mankind, like in a script. It just felt so cheap somehow. And it also felt like, well, God, anybody could do this. You can set a scene at a concentration camp, but you don't have to come up with any interesting drama because the drama is inherent in these horrifying images of these buildings. And so I think right after I wrote Exterior Maidanic Day, I just wrote note, there will be no music in this, and the characters will walk in and out of these rooms very simply, and there will be no camera movement, because I just felt so cheap writing a scene in these places. So I just wrote that, and that's just how he filmed it. So it was basically, there was no, there's no push in on a character as they experience something, or somebody, it was basically just like we set up the camera, had the actors walked in, I just begged them to not like overlap with each other physically so you can see them, and we did one take, maybe two if there was some technical issue, and then we just moved on. And so it was just like, this is the only way, it was just my way of coping with doing a scene that felt weird to film. It was like, okay, let's just do this the most austere way. And then the other thing is like, in comedy, you say you don't want to put like a hat on a hat. Means like, if you're telling a joke, you don't want to also put like a quirky word into that joke because it undermines the spirit of the joke. And with this, in a obviously completely different way, the buildings, the imagery of that place is so dramatic and so, shocking and a part of our, international consciousness of something terrible that you don't want to have a dramatic moment there. It's too much of the same thing. And so I thought it'd be interesting if like the characters are kind of numb, but just Kieran's character, who obviously has no filter, is just weeping openly on the bus. I thought, yes, that's the place where you can kind of express that stuff. And then there's also something a little almost ironically humorous about this guy who just has no filter, and now he's like weeping, and then the next scene he's going to be kind of like charming again, and just like this is kind of an interesting character moment for him.
Mm-hmm. Which leads me to the question that when I saw your film, I just was floored by the fact that you navigate irreverence and sacredness. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear you talk about the fact that you navigate this two opposites, but when we watch your film, they're not opposites. They go hand in hand, irreverence and sacredness.
Oh yeah, thanks. I mean, it wasn't calculated as much as it's just like my taste. Like I'm a depressed person or whatever, and that's nothing is more 2024 than I'm a depressed person or whatever. Yeah. I can't even commit to being depressed.
But you're very endearing because of that.
Yeah, I mean, but I recognize in myself even saying that in a public place is like so obnoxious, and that's what the movie is. It's like these characters are feeling guilty that that their lives are kind of pampered and privileged, and at the same time, my character says, I feel like my pain is unexceptional, so I don't want to like burden anybody with it. So it's like all that stuff is in the movie, but in terms of like the tone of it, it's just like my taste. I'm really conscious of not making a movie that's shallow, so I want to talk about these big themes, but then I'm talking about the big themes and I immediately feel like, oh God, this will be sanctimonious if I don't offset it with the humor. And so it's just a constant push and pull of the things I'm trying to avoid, sanctimoniousness and shallowness. And so the two fronts meet in the middle and you get a movie like this.
Okay, that's it. Let's go. I'm curious about, there's two scenes that knocked me out, is when Benji, walks out of the, the first class train, and then when he walks away from the dinner.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about those two moments of
like Benji fleeing social environments?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's somebody that has to be in control of every single situation, which is why he like manhandles me all the time, or it's why he's like complimenting my feet. It's just like another way to like kind of own me and the person that I used to be, and he wanting to get me back. And so he's a person who just co-ops every group he's in. And if he's feeling happy, then the group could have a good time. And if he's feeling angry, then like we all have to be angry now. Or if he's feeling sad, we all have to like, okay, now we're all sad. And then suddenly he's over it, so we're happy again. And then he's at the cemetery and he's yelling at this very well-meaning tour guide because he thinks he's too academic. And so it's just like this kind of person that needs to control every setting. And when he can't, and these people who are like this, who can be wonderfully charming, and but when they can't control a room, they just leave. It's not like the kind of thing. He has to leave because he lost the fight. Because the other guy in the movie, like the older guy, was like, I don't feel any guilt. What are you talking? And the kind of the group turns a bit against Benji, and he leaves. And the same thing at dinner. I kind of humiliate him at dinner accidentally by saying, actually, Grandma said the third generation smokes pot in their mother's basement, and he realizes, and I realized for the first time she was talking about him, and he's humiliated. And so instead of like just sitting with that, or maybe thinking, oh God, what have I done different? Maybe I could do something differently. He just says, oh, okay, yeah, I got to leave, and he does it in this crassly ceremonial way by drinking, burping, and then hits a spoon, which was an accident on the day. But like But basically, like, yeah, this person can't exist if they're not in control.
But also, what those scenes reveal unexpectedly is the baggage and the pain that he's carrying.
Yeah.
Tell us about, were those conscious, obviously, because I think you're very talented, the revealing the baggage that he's bringing.
Yeah, exactly. That's why right after he leaves the train, the scene is not me yelling at him for causing a scene. The scene is I sit down and I give him his food. I was like, are you okay? And he says, people can't just walk around the world being happy all the time. And so I was just trying to show that that's who he is. It's this guy who just can't stand that everybody was on the train happily eating their food. It kills him. And he's not just a person who is trying to yell at everybody for the fun of yelling it. It's because he can't stand that we're all sitting around. It's like we've all had this experience where you're sitting around and you've maybe just experienced some bad news, or you're feeling sad about something, and you're standing and people are having small talk and you just want to kill all of them. And he's just like that all the time.
The genesis of the story, I mean, I saw your play off-Broadway with Vanessa Redgrave, which somewhat dealt with this idea. Can you tell us how you came about?
Yeah, sure. The first play I wrote was actually after I traveled to Poland for the first time in 2008, and I wrote a play about me, like a kind of a bad version of me, not like a kind of just more self-centered, like obnoxious version of me, staying with my second cousin Maria, who's a survivor who lives in Poland. And so it was like a play, and Vanessa Redgrave played my cousin, and we did it off-Broadway. And I played a character named David who sneaks weed into Poland. But basically, yeah, it was about similar themes in the sense that, like, my character is like a very modern creation, somebody who, it pities themselves and walks through life feeling kind of miserable. And I thought it'd be interesting to put him in the room of a Holocaust survivor who's not a person of great wisdom, but just somebody of great tragedy, product of great tragedy, and to just see how, like, for me to just, as a writer, kind of just consider this weird American experience of me in a kind of comfortable middle-class life, feeling like my life is lacking meaning, and then when I try to find the meaning, it's from somebody who's actually had real trauma. And so that's what this movie is. It's like the characters are like trying to find meaning in their lives, and this Holocaust tour is not really giving it to them, and their relationship is also not really providing, and it's just a kind of consideration of all these things.
And then you wrote this short story, about the Mongolian students.
Oh, yeah.
Was there a connection between?
Yeah, so there's a funny story that also involves the Holocaust, but it's a funny story anyway. But I mean, that's weird to say that, but basically, I mean, the story doesn't involve the Holocaust, but it turned into this. But basically what happened was, I like 5 years ago, I wrote a short story about these two guys, friends, Benji and David kind of people, and they're going to Mongolia to visit their friend from high school. And when they get there, they're disillusioned by what their friend did. But basically, I was writing the script. They had arrived in Ulaanbaatar. Benji had stolen David's money from the ATM, and then I couldn't figure out where the script was going to go. And as I couldn't figure out where the script was going to go, an ad popped up online for Auschwitz tours, and then in parentheses, with lunch. And so I clicked on the ad, and it took me to this site of basically a yuppie, kind of middle-classy tour through Holocaust sites in Poland. But at night we stay in the Radisson, continental breakfast is included, and then Auschwitz will be a long day, so we're gonna take lunch on the bus. And it was just like, what the fuck is this thing? How? And the more I thought about it, the less irksome it made me, and the more I thought, well, okay, it's better than people not going at all, and if we need our creature comforts to go to this place and to learn about this history, then so be it, that's great. But what really was amazing was I dropped the Mongolia piece like that, and I took these two characters and made them cousins and put them on this road trip, because it was so rich in texture, because you can have the kind of bickering amongst these guys and the interpersonal strife, but set it against the backdrop of something so historical that their pain, which if this was a kitchen sink drama in New Jersey, you'd feel bad for these characters. But against the backdrop of this, you start to consider as an audience, wait a second, their pain is like a speck of dust. It's a speck of dust against a mass genocide. So do we feel bad for them? And now they feel guilty for feeling bad for themselves. So it just asked all these wonderful questions, and then just cinematically, of course, it gave me this amazing scope that I could film a tour. It can give the movie a structure, it can give the movie some kind of forward-moving momentum, and it can give the movie a visual panache that you can only get when you're shooting, a road trip movie like this.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
And then you add the character of Eloji. Eloji, tell us about incorporating. You actually incorporate a few opposites. We have the guide, is it James?
Yeah, James. Yeah.
James, but then Eloji, that he's actually the one person who's actually experienced genocide.
Yeah.
Tell us about creating those opposites. I mean, it's very mathematical what you've created. That's why I've seen the film twice, and I'm in awe of. On the surface, it's a very enjoyable film, but you have carefully calibrated everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, the character of Eloge, who's the Rwandan character, is based on my friend Eloge, who survived the Rwandan genocide at 10 and was sent to Winnipeg with money sewn into his jacket pocket, and met Jews there, older Jews who were survivors in Winnipeg, and he converted to Judaism because he felt like they were the only people that could understand what he'd been through. And he told me this story, and he's a devout Jew who, if you Google his name, I think the first video that comes up is him going on an Auschwitz tour. So when I was writing this movie, I thought, oh, this is amazing. I can kind of take this guy, and of course I asked Eloge, I'm writing this thing, would you mind if I used your story? And he was, happy to loan it to me or give it to me, whatever. But basically, but I thought it would be interesting to basically not, so that the movie didn't seem like it's just exclusively about Jewish trauma. One of the things I like to think about is the way my family's history dovetails with other traumatic history so that I don't feel this kind of like self-pity that trauma is exclusive to my group of people, and allowing and putting a character like that in just implicitly does it. So there's no polemic about how this has happened in other, the Holocaust is obviously a singular event, but genocides have occurred elsewhere. And so it allowed me to kind of implicitly and with a light touch just indicate, that this is not an exclusive event, or that this kind of trauma is not exclusive to Jews. And I also just thought, in terms of the math of the movie, I just thought it'd be great, because what you can see is Benji can react when he meets a guy like that, like, oh, fuck, man, that's so cool, you're from Rwanda. Like, because Benji wants to, like, kind of co-opt anything that he seems that's, like, immediately interesting in his purview, but then he never talks to the guy again. So this is, like, this unsustainable kind of character that Benji basically was like, shit, man, that's fucking awesome. Dude, I want to, like, pick your brain one day, and then never talks to him again. So it's, like, I thought that would be interesting. And then with James, the tour guide, I wanted this,
it's like a foil.
Yeah, exactly. They're all foils for Benji. Like, Marcia, the woman who's recently divorced, is like the cool woman on the trip. And so it's basically like designed for like Benji to win over like the cool woman immediately, and David to be literally left in the dust, like as Benji walks over and like, So basically it's like Benji's winning everybody over, but in these kind of like unsustainable ways, because he only knows how to have small, quick relationships before he sours them.
Will Sharp is terrific as James, the guide. Explain to me the significance of the British accent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the character was written basically as a British academic. I don't know if I'm sure there are probably a lot of Jews in here, and I could maybe use this word, philo-Semitism, which just means a love of Jews, but what it means colloquially is basically like a philo-Semite is like a person who like over-identifies with the Jewish experience in a way that feels actually kind of like strangely off-putting. Like, I just think you guys are like that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to have a character like that so that Benji, could basically just like, again, just come at him. Basically, a guy who's so earnestly interested in the Jewish experience that it gets annoying after a while. And if you're watching Benji throughout this movie, like, that's the thing he's like bucking against. Like, because Benji wants a real experience, and this guy only kind of filters his experience through academia. And he's so well-meaning, and that well-meaning thing just kills Benji too. Because it's like something about his happiness and his like, it was obviously a tragic history, and Benji's like, what do you mean obviously tragic history? Shut the fuck up. Like, let's, put the dirt on our faces and roll around in the mud. Because this guy there's something that's too posh about him.
The last moment that him and Benji are together is the emotional farewell, but there's this terse last line that James throws at Benji. Yeah. Tell us about that moment.
Basically, there's this funny scene that happens where, Kieran has yelled at him in the cemetery, and then, like, 10 minutes later, the character, instead of saying, Benji, that was really inappropriate, and I hope I never see you again, the guy says to him, you changed my life. I'm never going to run a tour the same way again. And Kieran, because he only lives in this, like, kind of moment-to-moment dog brain kind of thing, Kieran's just like, wait, what did I say? Oh, yeah, you should do that. No recollection that he just, like, berated this guy in a cemetery. And so we're doing this scene, and then I'm off camera. It's about to rain. I'm off camera, and Will, the actor, turns to me after the scene. He's supposed to just walk in, but he turns to me, and he goes, thanks, David. And he walked in, and I was like, oh, shit, it's going to rain, and we can't do that again without him saying that. And I was like, oh, shit, that line's too comic for the movie. And we couldn't get another take. And I was like, that line is too comic, and now we don't have a shot of him walking in. And I was just like, I just filed it under like things that I'm disappointed about. And then we got to the editing room, and the editor showed me his cut, and he put it in. And I was like, oh, that's great. It's great. It works well because it's not exactly a joke. It's only a joke because you know Benji and David so well that at that point that he would not give a shit that he's leaving David, but very much care that he's leaving Benji.
I have seen every play you have done. I know you're very precise. And then here comes Kieran Culkin, who's infamous for improvising. Mm-hmm. Tell us, how did that work out, working with the improviser, Kieran Culkin?
No, he didn't improvise in the movie. All he did was like, he's a genius. And I'm but it was not like improvising dialogue. Basically, what Kieran does, it's hard to exactly articulate because I've never worked with an actor that lives in the same way, but he basically like lived in the space of this character in this kind of moment-to-moment thing. he's such an unbelievable genius, and I don't know how to exactly describe how he was working because I couldn't personally understand how he works. But like he would come in not knowing the scene we're going to do in the day, and he would say, "What is it?" And I would say, "It's this scene. You have 5-page monologue on a train." And he would say, "Oh, can I borrow your script so I can see it?" And he would look at the scene for like a minute, and he'd be like, "Okay," and he'd be word perfect. And it would be fast as hell, that's how fast he is. And he just has some kind of chameleon-like brain. He was just trying to live in the moment for the whole movie, like the character. And so he just had this spontaneous quality that was just unusual for me as a writer to work with because I would ask him, like, that was great. I loved what you did, after a take. I would say, that was great. Try doing that same thing, keep that, but maybe at the end, maybe his rage comes in, and Kieran would say to me, I don't know what that was. I don't know what you're talking about. I have no recollection of what I did, but if you want to do another take, that's fine. And so he would just kind of like roll with it, but he lived so in the moment. I mean, I truly have never seen it before. I've literally never seen it. You hear some actors who are like very in the moment, but I've never seen somebody who literally has no idea what they did moment to moment. And he was always great, but he just didn't know from moment to moment like what he was doing, and he didn't want to talk about the scenes. That last scene in the airport, I had all these thoughts of why he's sitting in the airport at the end and what he's feeling and what the character's going through and what's going to happen to him next. And I said before, I was like, do you want to like talk about the scene? He said, go away, just go away, just go away. And I was like, okay. So I walked away and I'm watching the monitor and like tears are in my eyes. I'm just like, this is amazing. He intuits this character so brilliantly.
I'd love to ask you a very specific question about David and Benji. The fact that I was struck watching the film that your character envies Benji, but then we find out that Benji's situation is not ultimately enviable, that he's not in a good place ultimately. Can you tell us about, creating that dynamic between the two characters?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's like, so they're cousins, they grew up together, and Benji is Benji, and so you could imagine until David always lived in the shadow of him, and Benji was always the cool one. He probably smoked weed first, probably got a girlfriend first, had friends when David didn't, and was probably condescending and manipulative to David in a way David as a child wouldn't be able to have picked up on. And for me, as an actor, playing David, my like journey in the movie, and it's not like that kind of movie, that kind of traditional formulaic kind of thing, but my journey in the movie was basically to be able to shed the shame of being in the shadow of him. And so by the end of the movie, I'm going back to my family's house, and I've like kind of overcome feeling less than. And that's like, it's a small change for me, but I think that's what the kind of accomplishment of David is in the movie, is that he can come to terms with his own self and not just be a secondary person to Benji. And he's able to come to terms with that because he sees that this guy is genuinely broken and it's not something to envy anymore.
You mentioned going back to your family's home.
Yeah.
The home that we see in the film, Cranisdaw, that is actually your aunt's home.
Yeah.
And tell us about that dynamic of actually shooting a film, and your family's history.
One of the great things about writing a script you assume will never be produced is that you can just put anything in that you want. And so I just wrote, they go on this street to number 25 in Krasnostav. And then, 6 months later, the movie's actually going to get made? And then, 3 months later, they're like, and we can get down to Krasnostav on that day, and we could shoot in that house. I was like, whoa, really? We can just shoot there? They're like, yeah, why not? Where else should we shoot? And so it was just like this amazing, weird thing that occurred, and, a year after writing it, I'm standing outside that house, and the sun was blocking Kieran's eyes, and we had to take a half an hour of the day to set up a thing, because we had to look up at the guys, and it just became a movie set. And it was just so surreal. It was weird, primarily because I thought I was going to have this amazing cathartic experience, like shooting this movie at the house that my family was dragged out of. I mean, my family was dragged out of the house, taken to the cemetery 2 blocks away and killed. And our trailers were parked across the street from that cemetery. And I thought standing outside that house would make me feel like, oh, we've won. Who's laughing now? Or we've come full circle. Or wow, look at this cool thing I'm able to do for my family. And it was so weird and I'm not like an unfeeling person, but what was weird was just like it just turned into a movie set. It was going to start raining at 5:30 that day, and we were supposed to shoot till 7. That meant like an hour and a half less. That means I had to condense the shots. That means I had to get the actors up on that balcony earlier because the sun was going to dip below the apartment. And it was like I was trying to feel all this stuff, and I called my dad at the end of the day, and I was like, he was, you know, it was an emotional, you know, conversation with my dad. But I was just telling him, I was like, I just spent the day like basically directing like a ride at Disneyland. Like it didn't feel like this personal thing. And it was just so weird. It was just like, I was emotional talking to my father, but the day was just spent like, basically like I could have been directing National Treasure or something, you know, just like a movie that just had a lot of moving pieces.
Mm-hmm. I want to tap into something that you and I talked, you know, privately outside. You were concerned about the universality of this film. Is this film relatable to everybody? It is so specific and it's so deeply moving to all of us because of its specificity. Were you conscious of how specific it was and that it would speak to all of us, whether we're Jewish and we have undergone genocide or et cetera?
Again, that's such a nice compliment, and all I can say is that like I really write from a place that no one's going to read the thing, and so I'm just making it really specific to my experience. Like my character's dressed in the same clothes that I wear, my hat, my glasses, my one button on my shirt, and the stories that the characters are telling is just my family's stories, and you know, selling used furniture in Galveston, Texas. Like all the stuff is just true because I'm not writing from a place of thinking like this has to appeal to certain people. I just write from a place of no one's ever going to see this is never going to see the light of day, and so it's specific for that reason. What you're saying is really nice, but it implies a certain reverse engineering that my brain doesn't capable of.
And besides doing this Q&A with me, what does real pain mean to you?
Well, oh, that's funny. Stop that. What are you talking about? This is like the most sophisticated conversation I've had in months for this movie. Thank you.
Oh my God, can we have that on recording?
Yeah. No, I mean, we're only to be scored by Chopin behind us. It would be that much more. No, this is amazing and so flattering, and I'm so honored to be here. But I understand the question you're asking is not that. And the question you're asking, yeah, what is real pain? And yeah, I don't know, like, I want the movie to ask that question, like, is it enough to have OCD and to medicate it away, or do you have to try to kill yourself like Benji, or do you have to be part of a genocide? These are different, literally like different spheres of pain. And I guess my question to the audience is like, are they all valid, or does the bigger one cancel out the other ones?
Well, you're so freaking talented, dude.
Oh, thanks.
I'm so happy that you made this film. And thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me here. Thank you so much.